Hi, welcome to Perfectly Frank. I am Frank Dominic. Today I am joined by a special guest. You may know her as Unlearn 16. Unlearn 16, correct?
That's right.
Well, because I feel like I so casually want to call you Joanna that I totally forgot what your handle is, even though it's your handle everywhere. But yeah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Joanna Johnson. Go by Unlearn 16. Got into the TikTok world and the social media world when everybody was shut down for however long that was. That feels so long ago. And just slowly started building a platform, sometimes based on teaching content, accidentally, to be honest, based on some political content. And, occasionally I go shopping. That's about it.
You know what?
And
The
by
fit checks are
occasionally,
actually.
all the time. But
Well, and that's the thing. I think there is a lot of people who are drawn to your content. Like, I mean, the way that you deliver things and like you kind of deliver them in these on the fly, even with your paper, even though you have your notes, like you kind of refer to them, like you deliver it very in a very casual way, in a way that seems very authentically you. But I think also the fit checks are something that draw a lot of people in because your style is uniquely you, and I think that that's like it's an attention grabber, right?
Sure, sure. And it's just something I think at some point when I first started doing TikTok and I was lip syncing or whatever, my friends thought I was having a breakdown. Um, at some point I just said what I thought, and then I'm like, "Oh, that's what people are interested in." And so I don't want to limit it, or I just don't limit it to being political or having teacher content. I quite very, clearly just whatever I'm like today we're gonna go to a hibachi restaurant. I'll film that. I've never been to one. I just do what I think is funny, what I think is interesting, sometimes just what I'm doing that day. Like sometimes I'm like, guys, I have to go into Costco. I don't know what's going to happen in Costco, but we're going to go in Costco and see if we can get any good samples. And it's just like living that life. So I feel like when they know me better as a whole, I don't want to say that they trust me more to sort of believe what I have to say, but what I'm hopeful of is that they'll listen to what I have to say. That's what I'm
Well,
hopeful of.
and so, like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like there's a lot of bad faith actors out there when it comes to, especially like news and politics influencers, people who are either trying to ride waves or otherwise maybe they're not really kind of wearing their heart in their sleeve. And so I think, like, yeah, having those slice of life moments, them seeing us the way that we are,
Yeah.
I think allows them to feel like our opinions are more valid and not something that we're kind of building up as like a facade, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I know there are some people, you do more political content by far than I do. I look at a guy like Aaron Parnas, or I look at these Under the Desk News and all these people I like, and I'm like, holy crap, if I had to do that every day, blood would be trickling. I can't. I just can't live like that every day. I appreciate it. I respect it. But for me, sometimes I'm like, and now I'm filming snowboarding because I just can't talk about tariffs one more time. I just can't talk about
I've been avoiding the tariff talk too. It's just I can't make a video every 30 minutes about like a flip flop.
No.
It's
I am
not.
going to do one about the dairy tariff probably today, though, because nobody understands how that works in Canada. But and so I think it has value. I will do, and also people assume that I know. It's just like my students, you know what I mean? You know this. They'll come up to me and
How
be
do you
like,
know all this
"Joanna,
stuff, sir? It's like, well, I
how does
read.
a battery work?" I'm like, I don't know. Go ask the science. Why are you asking me? But I feel like a lot of people think just because I'm somewhat educated in realms of politics or minute areas of economic theory that I have a full grasp of everything. So a lot of people say, "Can you comment on this?" I said, "I can't." Because I need to be way more educated in that realm before I even give any sort of intelligent opinion. And so usually they're like, oh, so you don't know. And I'm like, no, no. Do you think I memorized the list of tariffs that Canada had on the United States before yesterday? No.
Well, that's the
These
thing.
are
Like, and we get it wrong too, right? Like, it's hard
sure.
to be right all the time, and that's one of the things I think we learn from teaching, right? Like, uh,
Yeah.
we're constantly on this cycle of like trying to evolve and how we deliver things. And like when you talk about like how you've made all this different content, like I've seen you do teaching content. I've seen you talking about, I believe, either your mother or your grandmother,
Yeah, my
and
mom and my grandma. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, you grand was it Rosie? Was that the name of?
Ruby. Yeah.
Ruby, yeah, and so like I've seen you talk about like your family and your upbringing and your fit checks and stuff about you and your wife,
Yep.
and yeah, like the Costco runs and this and that, and so there is this nice variety of content that we see coming out your way. What's the type of thing that like if regardless of the views, regardless of what people think of you, what's the thing where like when you pull out your phone, you record a video, you're really excited to do like this thing?
You know, it's so funny and it's so petty. When somebody goes at me in the comments in a ridiculous way, in a I hate your hair or my kids don't want to be around you or whatever, I'm not gonna lie. People wonder how I upped my. They think it was the politics of the teaching, and don't get me wrong, it has. But what really drew people in, what really was the fact that that kind of hatred or that kind of bigotry or whatever you want to call it, as soon as they hit send on that comment and I could see their grammar and their spelling mistakes, I'm like,
Let's
let's
get to work.
go. Let's go. And they're fun for me because it is fun to put somebody who's leading with such hate and such vitriol in their place, but not do it with the same kind of vitriol and hate that they led with. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm sarcastic, I can definitely be patronizing, however, that needs to be done. A lot of people are like, well, you're never going to change them. I go, that's not the point. Use your boatload of numbers. I have zero interest in changing their opinion. And in fact, I actually cover their name and their user
I've
number.
noticed
So
that
yeah,
actually you've been doing that, especially recently. You've been avoiding having people's names in the videos.
I have too many people that follow me because they'll go to their page and just decimate them. And TikTok doesn't like it. And to be honest, I don't want them doing it. There's no point in that. The point of my that post is to show somebody else that is feeling that, usually in a real way or sometimes just online, how stupid it is, how easy it is to pick apart, and how to sort of handle that. And I think that has value. So I do enjoy that. Obviously, my students being insane is fun for me. You know, asking them Superman's weakness, and the kid says love. Like that, I just feel like that should be a movie. You know, and you listen to your students, and it's hard because now they want to be on my channel. I'm like, guys, you can't.
Yeah,
You know,
there's rules and
you can't. Well, they could be. They've all signed waivers. They're all old enough. But I'm like,
gotcha.
when I have the follower account that I have, I get recognized and it's lovely. It's lovely, but I'm a grown adult. So when people come up to me, it's fine. I start putting students up there. I'm like, I don't, that's not a good thing.
And are your
I get,
students middle school aged or like what's
well,
the?
grades, so 13, well, I guess, yeah, 13 up to grade 12. So 17, 18.
Okay, so yeah, you do have like the high schooler because I feel like the only times I've seen your videos, the voices that I hear coming from the other side of the camera tend to sound younger for my
Yeah,
ears.
they're all 13 and 14-year-olds. So they're all
Gotcha.
old enough to be on camera, and they really want to, but I won't let them.
Yeah, no,
Um,
totally get that.
so I like that. Their voices are fine. And I've asked all their parents if that's fine as well, but um and so there's that, but I do enjoy doing like today what I'll probably do, because you see a lot of Americans and some Canadians who don't understand our system talking about how Mark Carney was just installed. Well, nobody understands the way that the Canadian parliamentary democracy works. So I've explained it, I thought, to a good level before, but today I'm going to explain it again. I'm going to explain, how anybody in Canada had the option to register for the Liberal Party and actually choose that leader if you wanted to.
For
Democracy
free
isn't
without even having to pay. Yeah,
yeah,
like
nothing. Democracy is not a stay-at-home sport. So if you want to pretend as though something was taken from you because you're lazy and uneducated, continue. But I'm going to have to fact check you so you know that you could have got off your butt, you could have gone on your computer for 37 seconds and figured it out. And no, he doesn't need to have a seat in Parliament. That is not a part of our Constitution. Conventionally, they always have. Do I think he will? Yeah, but he doesn't have to. Legally, according to our Constitution, he does not have to. That's the way it works. If you want to change the Constitution, there's about 17 other things I'd change first. Um, so yeah, so I think I'll do that one later. I'll talk about dairy and the parliamentary system.
So I had a question for you. Oh, another thing about your channel. So the name Unlearn 16, like where did that come from?
Oh, it was such an accident. You know, when you sign up for something like this, like when I signed up for TikTok, I had, I don't know, 600 people following me on Instagram. I had 4 people following me on Twitter. Like, I didn't even know how to use Twitter. I've had a Twitter account forever, but I didn't even understand. I didn't understand how
Well,
to
it seems like
use
you're
it.
enjoying Twitter now because like you do. I see a couple of your takedowns here and there, especially when you're talking to some of these like MAGA
Oh,
style Republicans.
listen, it's such a harsh place to be in. Anne is like, Joe, can you not do Twitter in the morning? Because it puts you in a bad. Because it's such. I kind of like it
I
because
try to
it's like
avoid it.
one of.
It's bad.
It's like Fight Club in there, and we're
Yeah.
the opposite team, right? So I feel like my hands are always up. Um, like there's no left support on Twitter anymore. They've all gone to
Yep.
blue sky. Um, so yeah, so when I started, my friend's kid, it was obviously COVID or kind of like off the tail end of, well, we were still in lockdown. And he's like, join TikTok. I said, what for? And he goes, I'm not going to dance. Like, I don't know. What do you want me to do? I've seen TikTok. It looks ridiculous. Anyways, and he said, I'm going to set you up with an account. So he set me up. He goes, what do you want to be called? I said, Unlearn, because it's very Socratic, right? And I had this post. You remember Unlearn also was like a brand that was around in Toronto for Pride and stuff like this. But the
No,
concept
no,
of
I'm not familiar.
unlearning, the
But
concept
unlearning, I assume, yeah, unlearning like your what's been institutionally taught to you.
Yeah, and I always liked the idea. And I for my full teaching career, I've always had a poster behind me that says Unlearn. It has Socrates underneath it. And I think people think it's ironic because I'm a teacher. I'm like, no, no, that's the point. And we all have to, right? And then the 16 was simply my sports number because Unlearn was taken.
So you had to add
So
something
that
to
could have
it.
been user bunch of numbers. That could have been just as easy. It was by chance I chose something intelligent.
It just happened to work out. Yeah, I mean that's kind of interesting how that plays out. I mean, like you do talk a lot about education and stuff like that, and so you've mentioned your students. You teach at a school called Metro Prep. Is that correct?
Metro Prep Academy, yeah, in Toronto.
I remember seeing a video at one point about you talking about saving the school or something.
Yeah, so and I'll make a very long story short. What
Sure.
happened was I've been teaching there my whole career, so for 23 years. And last year, the owner and the principal of the school, who I've grown up with, passed away. And it was relatively sudden. We thought his sister was going to take it over. We thought it would continue on. And then we were quickly made aware that wasn't going to happen. And I don't have school buying money. Uh, so Ryan Seeley and I, who's the principal there now, we've been working there for 23 years together. Very, very close friend of mine. We kind of looked at each other and I said, I don't want this to be over. I don't want this dynamic to be over. We have to, and so we try to find external partners who had that kind of money that could back a school. We ended up partnering eventually through all of these different things with the individual actually owned the building we were leasing, and she saw me from social media and she knew Ryan, and she goes, I don't want, no, we're going to figure out how to make this work. You guys are amazing. And now we have this incredible partnership where Ryan and I run the school education stuff and student stuff and curriculum and all that. And her team is this incredible sort of marketing and support system trying to create sort of a more well-known ethos of what we do and how we do it. My old principal grew up in an era of like newspaper ads. What we
A little
don't
bit
live
different.
those, right? We
Yeah.
don't live there anymore. We barely live. It's so funny. Everybody's like, "Well, it's your website or it's get." I'm like, I don't even think we live there anymore. And so trying to figure out how to get it known, trying to wear multiple hats because I still teach and I'm a vice principal, which I think I will always be. I will always want at least one class each semester because I think that has value as an administrator. And then just building a school that I think doesn't exist other places, and is as authentic as we can make it.
And I don't mean to put you on the back foot here, but this is something that I'm just kind of curious about because I've seen you like talk very positively about public education as well.
Yeah.
And because you do fall to the left of the political spectrum, um,
How the
I'm
hell
just
am I in
wondering
a
like
private school?
that, yeah, and that's the thing. I really, because I try to be open minded to like the like my kid is at a for profit daycare, for example, and it's still covered under the Canada program, and so like I'm also wrestling with that too, like with the whole like, well, should I not be putting my kid in a not for profit, etc. So what drew you to that private school, and where do you see the value of private schools within our public education system?
It's an amazing question. I 100% support public education. When I was graduating in high school in 1994, don't judge. Um, I already saw. I lived through the Mike Harris years. Okay, so I already saw the dismantling of the teacher union. As soon as you took out principals and vice principals, and you made them management, and you made teachers employees, and then you had obviously a different union for support staff workers. As soon as you separated those groups of people, you turned them into factions. It was the worst thing you could have done for the management and the running and the functionality of public schools. Number one. Number two, they started taking away money. And as soon as you start taking away money, I don't care who's in government next. That's happening. That's being taken away. That's being siphoned. You're never re-upping that, right? I had Kathleen Wynne on my podcast quite a while ago, and I said, listen, you legislated teachers back to work, which later was obviously found to be unconstitutional. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, what are that's not supposed to be you, and she had very specific answers for that. But I started to see that this significant educational cost without significant educational reform was gradually being so destroyed that kids weren't getting benefit. Teachers were over. Look at it. Look at the
It's
teachers having to leave. It's
I know a
insane.
lot of people who are experiencing that kind of burnout. People who have been teaching either for 5 years or for 15 years, and like things have only gotten worse since I started teaching, and I've only been teaching since Ford has been premier.
There we go.
So
Well, of
that's
course, it's going to
like
get. But the funny part is, so when I started at Metro, it was by accident, purely by accident. A friend of a friend said this school is hiring. At that particular moment, there was like no hiring going on in the public board. That was it. It was
you
just
needed a job.
accident.
Yeah, yeah.
And as I started working there, the environment, which back then it feels crazy to look back at what teaching was like 23 years ago and what that vibe was like because our school has changed exponentially. However, it was very interesting because it allowed me complete freedom and empowered me to teach how I thought the student needed to be taught. I had nobody sitting over my head telling me what to do. I had to follow curriculum. That was it. I had much smaller class sizes. I had consistent support. If I wanted to take the kids to Tanzania, cool, somebody book us a flight. That was it. All of the red tape gone. It's not that we don't need permission and we don't need all of that kind of stuff, but nothing was done by committee, nothing, because it was also I'm a small private school, right? Because I know big private schools, when people say private or public, I go, which school?
So
Which
like when
school
you
is
say
it?
small, do you mean like a couple hundred or?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, back then it was probably um it was bigger because I started the double cohort year. So I started teaching 19-year-old kids and I was barely
Yeah,
older
yeah.
than them, so it was a very weird um but so that was the biggest year. And then we went down to probably about 450 or something like that for many different reasons. We're small and we almost closed, blah, blah, blah.
And for perspective, the high school that I teach at its max when I was there was 2,300 kids.
I
So
can't. I,
I like the chaos of a big building, but it can be a lot.
and the reality is, and a lot of people will say, so I've worked there my whole career. So was part of it just accidental? Absolutely. The fact that I'm where I am and now I can sort of and I have been probably for the past 10 years really shaping an ethos of the school and a mentality of the school, getting to know parents in a significant way, getting to know obviously their children and the way that they learn and what I can do in a classroom of 12 kids as opposed to what I can do in a classroom. For all of those reasons, it's better. It's a better education. And a lot of parents will say, well, or I'll say to parents, how big do you want Metro to get? And I have a very particular, in my head, it's 350. A school bigger than 350, in my opinion, I can't step out into the hall as vice principal and know where they're supposed to be.
And know every
Know
kid, and
know
yeah.
how if they're having, I don't need to know them deeply. Know if they're having a good day. Know if there's a problem. Know if there was a death in the family. Know that their parents are going through something. To me, forget math curriculum for a second. Anybody who's a teacher knows 50 to 60% of our teaching is handling their mental capacity. And I don't just mean that with anxiety and depression and all the things kids go through. I mean that quite literally in an empowerment kind of way. No kid can fly under the radar. So if a kid's going to get 97, guess what? They're going to do that anywhere. Have a good day. If a kid hates school so much they don't even want to go, they're not going to go. But the kid getting 60, 70%, good kid, quiet, doesn't cause any trouble. That kid, and this isn't the fault of the teachers, it's the fault of putting 30 kids in a classroom.
It's hard to give them attention because there's
Kid,
other louder things that take your attention away.
1,000%, right? And so that individual never gets to experience or grow or manifest their actual potential, what they can do, what they might want to do, by the way. And I'm not saying we do it perfectly at all, but that's not being done other places, again, structurally. I'm just talking pure structurally because I know tons of public school teachers who are incredible teachers, and with 30 kids in the classroom, with 10 IEPs and different learning strategies and different accommodations and modifications, and the list goes on, are doing incredible jobs. But not one of them would say they couldn't do a much better job if you reduce the size of that class.
Well, one of my semesters, I had my three sections were a class of 37, a class of 35, and a class of 32.
What age?
These were all two grade 12s and one grade 10.
See, the grade 12s, I'd almost say I don't mind a bigger grade 12.
And
Grade
that's
10,
what I normally tell guidance with when it comes to my grade 12 class. If kids want to take econ and we're full, I say load me up, even if we have to go beyond
that's what I'm
the
used
the
to.
capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah, because those kids, the marking sucks. The marking is
Yeah.
not great. But if a kid is dying to be in that class and the class is full, then A, maybe I can get a second section and have two smaller sections next year. But also B, like they want to be there, right? Especially the kids who are signing up when it's full. Like they're on a wait list for a reason. So usually the kids really want to be there, and I really want to bring them into the classroom. So like but yeah, the tens, when the tens and the
It's too
nines get
much. Are you
big,
kidding me?
it's
10s are still a little grade 9. And I don't teach grade 9. I'm not into blood sports. So the grade 10s, you still, but also about the grade 10s outside of puberty, which is horrific. You're still dealing with kids who have decided, and this is the sad part, usually they've decided they're stupid. And they still think that you can still pull them back from that edge if you see it in a grade 10.
yeah.
If you see what they're doing, why they're doing it, if you can see that in a kid, you can still reel them in. It's going to be a hard reel because grade 10, especially now, they really care what their friends think. Now they really, and if they do think they're incapable, they'll be the joke guy, they'll be the guy going to the bathroom every 5 minutes. But if you can reel them back from that, that's what I think, education should be about. And we're also entering a digital world, right? And I know that understand this and implore this because we can no longer rely on a take home this essay as an assessment.
Doesn't work. Kids are going to use AI, or otherwise they're not going to complete it properly.
And to be honest, let's also wrap our head around, I know people in multi-billion-dollar business industries that use AI every single day to write emails, to write reports, so I don't even advocate taking that away. What I'm saying is we need different ways of assessing. And the primary way, in my opinion, which we have dropped a very long time ago, which we need to bring back, but we can't do it with 37 kids in the class, is debate, discussion, presentation.
Yeah. And the
Kids
kids
can do
hate the
all the
presentation
reading
part, but
on
they love the
AI.
debates.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
now let's see if you know what you're doing. If you can stand in front of that room. And I'll tell you what, that's a far more transferable skill and useful skill for the real world than it is at home writing the essay or sitting down and writing a 50-page, a 50 question multiple choice test.
And with the econ kids, I'll tell them like when we're doing our debate, because I do a big debate at the end of the semester. I'll tell them I'm like, this is how we use AI like properly. So let's go in like you're struggling to find your third argument. Let's go into AI. Let's punch in like all the information that you have, all the research that you've done. Ask it to come up with a third argument. Oh, you don't know what your opponents are going to argue? Ask it to come up with 10 arguments that your opponent might use, and then from there you prep your counterpoints. Like it's great for it's having a person to bounce ideas off of almost like
Sure.
as long as you're coming with your information, you're coming with your intelligence, it can enhance the work that you're doing. And I think that we need to find ways to, because teachers need to be taught how to teach this stuff, right?
100%.
Like it's
I
it's
didn't even have
it's
the
so
internet
complex.
when I was in school.
Well, like so when I was for reference, like we just the Ontario government just updated the business curriculum for the grade 9 and 10 courses. But for perspective, this grade 9 course that we just stopped teaching last year was first introduced when I was in grade 9. So I was the first year of grade 9s who took it. Then I was one of the last years to teach it. And as I was teaching it in the curriculum, we gave up on the curriculum maybe halfway through the time that course was being taught over the 16 years that it was out, because literally in the curriculum it would say like teach kids how to use a phone book, teach kids how to use a floppy disk, like literally like stuff that like is so outdated. And so like I don't blame the governments for not always focusing on the business curriculum, because focusing on updating math and language and science tends to always kind of take more priority. But it does suck when the curriculum is so far removed from the reality of the world.
But it's asinine. The fact that there's no mandatory course on digital literacy. What are we doing here?
And I implement that
How
kind
does
of stuff
that
into my
work?
courses. Yeah.
Of course, we do as teachers, right? But how does that core course not exist? Period. How every student should be taking that class. I'll tell you what we can get rid of: careers. Bye. There's lots of core courses. Courses on diversity and equity and inclusion. I swear to God, if I was in government right now, I would do everything. If Trump's doing it, I'd do the opposite.
Good
And
playbook.
and I would do it with my full chest. Oh, I'm sorry, you're getting rid of it? Cool. We're making it our whole mission statement because you're idiots. You want to dismantle diversity? You just want to have potatoes like you and what you're thinking? Oh, that's a great idea. Let's see how that works out.
Well, and that's actually one of the things I wanted to touch on is that you've gotten the comments, I've gotten these comments too. A lot of political creators get these comments. People saying, "When are you going to run for government?" Or "What would you do if you're prime minister?" Or "You should do X, Y, Z."
Yeah.
Has that ever crossed your mind at all, or it's not you? Not no.
I've had some good conversations. I've been in a lot of rooms
Yeah.
lately. My problem is this, and I flat out tell anybody who wants to talk to me about it. I'd say I'm not good at a couple things. Number one, I'm not good at fake listening. I'm a teacher. I talk way too much. It's probably one of my problems. Number two, I'm not good at compromise. I don't think there's a lot of value sometimes in the way that compromise works. I understand you need it in politics. I'm just not good at it. And number three, don't give me speaking points. Don't tell me what the party line is, and don't demand that I don't,
You're away
diverge
from it.
from it
Yeah.
in essential. I I think that to be perfectly honest, you want to you know what I think's killing politics and why Donald Trump won and why guys like Doug Ford got elected with 12 people that voted for him, is because in the absence of real, intelligent, capable authenticity, we'll settle for the idiot. Because
We'll settle for the person who says it like it is.
we think they're not, by the way, they're not authentic at all, but we think they
No.
are because they can't tell the difference between they and they are.
They seem like they're more down to earth, even though
Real,
Doug was
down to
born with a
earth,
silver
yes.
spoon in his mouth and all that.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Exactly. And I would never have a speechwriter. I would make big mistakes. I would have probably said some things about, if I was prime minister, I would have, Canada would have been in big trouble. I've already told people, and I'm going to do this TikTok, although I'm slightly hesitant. I'm like, you as Americans, because they always say, what do we do, Joanna? What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? And I'll say, number one, don't go protesting. He wants it. He wants it to get a little violent desperately. He desperately wants it. Don't
But
you
he
dare.
can justify his reaction. Yeah.
Don't you dare. This thing they're doing with Teslas, like, the vandalism and don't stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. They want that. He just did an infomercial on the White House lawn. Stop it. What I would say to Americans, get 20 million of you not to go to work for a week.
A general strike, a good old fashioned general strike.
Watch it change tomorrow. What are they going to do? Come into your house and say, get to work? This is violent? They can't. I mean, they could, but, anything's possible. But my point is, as Americans and as Canadians, we need to decide if his only goal, if its only reason for life is how do I make money? How does the stock market go up? All of those things. And you want him to, change what he's doing and his tact. The only way to do that is hit him in an economic bottom line. And to be honest, and then sell your Tesla stock. Sell it all. I
Get rid
promise
of it.
you,
Dead
I promise you, Donald Trump doesn't like Elon Musk anymore if he doesn't have $300 billion. He doesn't get trips to the White House anymore. His pretty cars aren't out front choosing between them, calling them Tesla. Look, it never happens. Poor people are all of a sudden not geniuses. So dump his stock. Watch what happens.
So you touch upon a lot of different things, and it's interesting because like it's very so would you define yourself as a leftist, right?
Sure.
Yeah, like I mean it's because I know
have
it's
to. I
yeah,
have to. I mean, my priorities, and I think when people ask me what party, and I don't love that, and I will never say who I vote for.
and I don't try to tell people who to vote for either, and that
I
kind of
don't
because
like
that part
it.
does bug me. Yeah,
Makes me feel uncomfortable. But what I do say is I think there's two genuine people in this world, and this is separate from serious political ideology or political parties. There are people who think if you create a good economy, the world will get more just. And then there's people who think you need to have justice before you create the economy. I'm just the latter. I don't think you ever develop a fair, useful, sustainable economy unless you have justice first.
there
And
has to be a way for people to survive before we can thrive.
it has to. You otherwise you create an oligarchy, which we obviously all have, because we've all decided, let's be perfectly honest, that we need to have the economy first, right? And I'm not saying we throw our money out the window, and I'm not advocating for communism, as some people, obviously that's their knee-jerk reaction to stuff that I say. I am saying we've created a system of economics in which we've been playing Monopoly for a long time. We have winners. There's already one guy that owns all that whole line on
All the
Monopoly,
money.
the other line
Yeah,
on Monopoly. You're not getting into the game, right? It's over. The game's over. This isn't capitalism. This is something else. And the
yeah, like it's
something
techno
else,
feudalism. Yeah,
yeah, and the something else isn't useful anymore. And a lot of people will be like, oh, you just hate Elon Musk. I'm like, no, not at all. I mean, I think Trump has done something, and somebody's going to clip this and run with it. Trump has done something important for our culture. It got stuck in my throat when I said it. Number one, he showed us that sexism, misogyny, homophobia, xenophobia, racism, all of those things aren't dead. They're alive and well, and people have been hiding them, right? Pulled off the masks, so to speak. Number two, he showed us, he puts on front news what an oligarchy is and how much it can control the world. It was before. It was before as well.
but now it's mask off.
Yeah, and it's done it for Democrats just as much for Republicans, and I'll be super clear. But Trump has put it on full blast. He's put it on television. He has Elon Musk standing to his right shoulder while he does press conferences. He has the little one telling, him to to let his dad talk. It's put it on full blast, and I think it is shaking people awake to the point where they understand that this isn't just a microcosm. This isn't just an accident. This is the same road leading to the same way. We're just further along it. And this is our time to redirect history, right? If the 60s and 70s were about civil rights, right now we need to be about economic rights and economic freedom
Class
and
consciousness and the up
political
down
awareness.
struggle.
Yes, and what democracy means and how it can easily be bought and sold, and all those things need to change. And by the way, George Washington said, as soon as there was two political parties, like, I'm done. This is stupid. You've destroyed democracy by creating two camps that you will always just align yourself with, no matter how stupid, how obvious, how corrupt. You're just going to sit and entrench yourself in those camps. I have obviously a problem with that.
And so I mean, like, when it comes to your development of like your ideology and like how you came to be the person that you are, um so you would have grown up, you would have had your formative years in like the 90s and the early 2000s, when in Canada we saw the dawn of like
Right.
LGBTQ rights and gay marriage. um so where does your like whether it's your LGBTQ identity or otherwise, like your identity as in terms of like how you represent yourself, in terms of like you don't you present very masked, but at the same time, like I wouldn't take away your femininity from you. So like where do you kind of see like your gender and sexual identity in terms of like how you came to be who you are?
Oh, that's a great question. It's so funny that I don't think about it very often. First of all, let me admit something. When I was in grade 13 politics class, I was a conservative.
But you know what's
I
funny? It's
also
like
was,
so Steve Boots says the same thing. When I was younger, I definitely had more conservative
really,
ideologies, and
yeah.
like
You want to know why? Because I think young kids haven't developed the capacity to think in grays. And when you think in black and white,
it has to be one or
and
the other.
you're in a comfortable position in your life, like obviously I'm white, I was straight at the time or whatever. I came from a decent family, my mom made good money, I had a loving house, all of the things, right, that never pushed me outside of the bubble. And I'm like, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, what am I doing it, like, but that's because you had a very limited view of the world and you don't understand the nuance, right? And so when I think about sometimes hard extremists, especially on the right, I'm like, oh, they're just baby brains. You just haven't, you're not intelligent enough, or you're not allowing yourself to be intelligent enough to understand nuance, because you feel very safe and secure in black and white, right and wrong, yes or no. It's just not the way anything of any substance works in the world. So I didn't come out until I was 25. So I was doing my master's. Um, I don't know if it changed. I think what it did, finally, is it shoved me out of that bubble. That's
And
it.
it introduced you to other people who had been living that identity
Other
for years.
people, other ideas, and you can kind of go, oh, so now when I walk into a space, I could be treated like crap just because of how somebody perceives who I am. Meanwhile, 5 minutes ago, before I had this haircut, I was beloved. And I haven't faced. I'm also not gonna lie. I haven't faced a lot of hate in my real life. I realize online I might. But I was very afraid. So when I started teaching, it was 2002 at a private school, and I'm like, I'm not telling anybody I'm gay. Now, hun, everybody knew, but I didn't tell
You didn't want to
the
wear it on your sleeve.
no, I didn't tell coworkers. I didn't tell the guy I worked for. I sure as heck didn't let my students know. Nothing. For the full year, I was terrified because I just thought it could be cause for me getting fired. If a bunch of conservative parents got together and we don't want that teacher teaching our kid, I think that could have, I genuinely thought that could have happened. I was worried that if students found out that kind of, I grew up in the height of homophobia. In the 90s, Stop it. HIV was rampant. You had the government telling everybody that it was the gay population's fault and nobody's doing anything about it. You had all of that crap put into your head and thinking about how the ways people spoke when I was in the 90s, and I just sort of carried that on to early 2000s. Not that big of a time difference. And then as a teacher, this is the beauty I watched. And this is possibly the ethos of my political ideology that I don't think I've ever really articulated. I watched kids in a very short order I'd say in about 10 years, go from we don't believe in gay relationships. They shouldn't, no, shouldn't exist. To, okay, we're fine with the relationships, but no gay marriage because gay marriage shouldn't exist. To, oh, we're fine with gay marriage, no gay adoption. No, that's wrong, right? To, and then they shifted altogether, and then they started talking about the trans community. Oh no, that's not okay. And then I'm at a place, I'm telling you right now, kids don't, anybody who argues about any of those basic human rights, students are bored by you, embarrassed by you, and just walk away. I'm sorry, you want to be called she, her? Amazing. They, them?
They don't care.
Fantastic.
The kids just don't
Somebody
care.
get me somebody get me some KFC, I'm hungry. That's it. And that was 10 years. It was a very quick, I hear debates in my class. It was a very quick progression. And I think right now we're feeling the backlash. And this is why I think this is a death rattle for the Republicans, for the alpha male, for all of the ridiculous kind of garbage we're hearing coming out of that administration. It is a death rattle for the traditional, I need to hold on to it, patriarchal existence that we had in 1952, that we want to hold on desperately to, because they understand that the rest of the generations think they're stupid. Now,
Well, because
some
even
of them
young
have been usurped, but
yeah, because even young conservatives or like millennial conservatives that like little c conservatives, not like the big C, but like they don't want to talk about like LGBTQ rights or trans rights in terms of like a thing that like they should be against. They're like, whoa, 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 why do we have to talk about it at all? And I think that that's something that whether it's Mark Carney or whether it's even Doug Ford to a certain degree, that I think is something that people appreciate about their political style, because like Trudeau was very much the advocate and the ally, but it seems like guys like Carney and Ford are like, we're not going to talk about it because those are rights and rights are inalienable, and we're not going to infringe on that. So I'm going to talk about the economy. I'm going to talk about jobs, and that I think allows people to cross the border between red, orange, and blue and feel as though they can vote for that party. Because once you drop the social issues, we can actually start talking about the nuances of political ideology, and people can feel more free to vote and think differently.
Absolutely. And I think that's incredibly important. I also think it's incredibly important that when we talk about conservative ideology, that we drop the religion. And I realize it was a fundamental aspect of conservatism, the idea that it has a religious base. I think any serious conservative in a secular democracy has no need, no desire, no drive to weaponize their faith in order to control or spread propaganda. The more that I see prayers go on in the White House, the more I understand that that's exactly what they're trying to do. It's very, 1980 Reagan. They're trying to figure out, and it's an emotional drive. I get the play. I get the propaganda, I understand why it works. It's not that I don't understand those points. I am saying it should absolutely have no place in government in any way. And I've said this before, if we're going to have freedom of religion, we need freedom from religion. My kids hate it when I say this because I also advocate no Christmas break. They're like, Joanna! I'm like, well, I'm not saying we shouldn't have a break. Don't dial it down. I don't want to spend 2 weeks with you any more than you want to spend that 2 weeks with me. However, calling it holiday break didn't really change the needle for me.
Doesn't make a difference. Yeah.
4 days off at Easter. What?
That's the Easter one I always find funny, because like people like literally just cannot comprehend like why we need the time. And I'm like, yeah, it's just because it was Catholic Ontario, and this is how the holiday calendar came out, and like thankfully at least we still like give students and people time off for other holidays that fall outside of the Judeo-Christian pantheon.
Yes.
But it's it doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, no, you're right.
No, I mean, and I grew up with stores not being open on Sunday. I'm a big shopper, Frank. I open those stores, and the idea, the economic burden that was placed on Jewish or Muslim families to open up on Saturday or just lose your business. Those are really your two options back in the day. Are absolutely asinine. But I think, again, going further than that, I just don't think. I don't think, and don't get me started on Catholic schools being publicly funded institutions. Catholic hospitals. My mom worked at St. Mike's Hospital for a very long time after Wellesley shut. And you can't go to St. Mike's and have an abortion. It's a
Damn,
Catholic
Sid,
hospital.
that's crazy.
Excuse me? Yeah, you have to be transferred to another hospital. They still have somebody on staff, their sole job is to talk to the Pope. What? What? They,
I know that.
so
Yeah.
again, you're allowed to have any faith you want. I have nothing but respect for personal beliefs. They should not enter the public sphere in a controlling or a limiting or a prescriptive legislation driven way.
No,
Period.
for
And,
sure.
and
I
any
100%.
religion. Yeah, any religion. I was just fighting about this. I was with Viva Frey and I have a very strong love-hate relationship. Because he goes so hard. I go, well, yeah, I disagree with everything you say, but somehow we can still have a good fight. You know what I mean? And we were talking about this, and he goes, I think, religious foundations are what separates us. I said, no, 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 no. If you look at how we got better, the minute the West started getting better, started getting more equalized, started actually being more inclusive, is the moment we took religion out. That's when it happened. When we
Yeah.
took religion out of our government
Start to
and let
equalize people.
women vote
Yeah.
and ban, that's when it happened. Don't pretend as though. And by the way, I mean, yeah, anyways, I don't need to talk about the history of religion and the abuse and the violence that have gone on. It's just that that's when we've gotten better. I want a sense of morals and ethics and laws that make rational sense. Don't kill somebody. Rational. Doesn't need to be in the Ten Commandments.
It's just
For me,
a human decency thing, right?
well, that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Anyway.
Well, one thing I also did want to ask you about. So, like, you've got a very unique style, right? The tattoos, the jewelry that you wear, the haircut and the style, the hats.
Right.
Like, how did you begin to develop that, like, just like aesthetic? Like, because you have a flair, right? And it's like some people might like. I've seen in your comment section people interpret it as like a lesbian style or a black influence style or an urban influence style, but none of that rings true to me because I've seen you in so many different outfits that you just seem to be you. So I'm kind of just curious where that kind of came from.
I think, well, first of all, nobody can get rid of their childhood, right? I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So if I'm going to be influenced by fashion, that's where it's subconsciously coming from. So I see something in a store, I'm like, cool, that's cool. I guarantee it's because it was cool in 1987.
Yeah, the hip hop style of like the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, yeah.
And I think at 49, you go, I don't fucking, excuse my language, I don't
No, no,
care.
it's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
I don't care.
You
I
want to be
don't
you.
care what you think. I don't care what you think I should be wearing. I don't care. If I put it on, and that's just being a 49-year-old person. I don't know about men and lived experience on that side of the fence, but as a woman, being told to wear the right heel, the right blouse, the right size skirt, the right kind of pantyhose, the right hair, all of the, makeup, all of that crap. You get to a certain age, and hopefully, you recognize for that being the absolute garbage that it was and how ridiculously controlling. Now, what I find interesting is I do, as much as I would love, I joke with people. They're like, well, if you were going to meet Obama, would you wear a backwards hat? I said, possibly.
Maybe.
What are we doing? What are we doing? Like, what, but I found it very hard to find a dress style, like a dress up style that I actually like, because I like masculine clothes, but I like feminine cuts, and that's difficult. What I've decided is I should just shop in Japan. I
Oh,
think,
because the size differences, or
they just do men's clothes with a feminine flair in Japan. I
Gotcha.
find the immersion of the two the absolute best. And so I've never been to Japan, but if I could, that's probably what I like things. And do I like things baggy? Yeah. Why are we wasting our time with tight pants? Nobody likes it. It doesn't feel good. You don't want to sit down. You put on a couple pounds, you feel bad. Screw it. I'm gonna buy, you know what I mean, and just feel comfortable and have a, you know, and but I do like to match. I do like a good shoe.
That's the thing. Like I'm very confident in my like dress down style. Like I'm very casual. Like I like wearing stupid graphic tees. This one has Beetlejuice on it, right?
Love it.
Like that's always been my thing. Where it's just like I want to wear a t-shirt with something stupid on or something funny on it, or a dumb catchphrase or whatever, and jeans and my leather jacket, and that's just what I feel comfortable in. But
Yes.
I don't think that I have a sense of style. I just put on the things that I like. Whereas like it seems like you've got like a style brain, and I appreciate that because I wish I could be a little more minded like that.
I like shopping, Frank. I really enjoy shopping. I think that's part of it, you know, but I think it's also I think I rail against certain things because a lot of people like to condemn me for wearing what I wear, and they're like, you're not taken seriously, and your stupid hat and your haircut. And they might even say it almost like a compliment, like you're really intelligent and you have a lot of good things to say. If you would just dress a little bit
Dress a
differently,
little
you'd be
more
like,
appropriately, not
yeah,
show off your
100%.
tattoos.
And my counter to that isn't to really talk about how I dress, is to talk about the way in which we give credit and a level of interest and a level of reverence for individuals wearing a $3,000 suit. That's way more dangerous than discounting me because I wear baggy pants. You give keys to the kingdom to the guy driving the or girl driving the expensive car wearing Prada, and you just
Because you think
hand
that
it
they're better
over
for some
because you
reason.
think they have value. And the perfect example of that is Elon Musk. Oh, he must be a genius. Let him completely run the government. What? Money and the way you present does not give you value, and it sure as hell doesn't make you moral or ethical, and it definitely doesn't make you a genius. It
No,
makes you
definitely
good
not.
at that. So I usually talk about that side of the fence.
So then, in terms of fashion and style, then between you and Anna, who's got the better sense of style?
She's in the bathroom right now. Baby, who has better style, me or you?
Well, the fact that you stole my hat style should say something.
So the sideways backwards hat, or the sideways hat at all, she's totally right. She does that. She does
So
that. I don't know
it's
who
a
had more
compliment system.
shoes. When we got together, we both have a shoe thing. So I probably had more just because I spend money more freely, but Anna's pretty much caught up. Um, but
I
yeah.
will say though that being with you has let me find and express myself more of me as to before, where I didn't quite know where I fell because you
Mm,
like style so much, where you were like, well, what about this? What about this? So you were just more open to,
trying things
yeah,
out. No, I like that. Thank you, baby.
I love you.
A complimentary answer.
Fantastic. Yeah,
Um,
I think Anna, because she's long hair, gorgeous, very feminine, very petite, right? So there's a drive to, especially if you're gonna get dressed up. Well, okay, now you have a particular narrow line that you could possibly be wearing, and she's kind of expanded that a bit. She does like getting dressed up. She does like a solid heel and doing her hair, but it just widen it. I used to have when I started teaching. I remember I had a coworker sit me down and say, "Joanna, I have a question. I don't mean to insult you." I'm like, "Oh no."
Here we
I
go.
said, "Okay, hit me." And she goes, "Why do all gay women dress the same?" I said, "I'm gonna stop you right there." I said, "I'm gonna ask you to go down to by the back in the day, like This Is London or whatever kind of a little bit nicer of a club." I go, "And please." As the straight women walk in the room, can you please, on a checklist, say exactly what they're wearing and how different they are? Because I'm going to tell you right now, that straight women have a much more back then especially, narrowly defined acceptable norm of what it is, especially when they're stepping out into the world. I said, you think all gay women look like me because when you look at Anna, you don't think she's gay. That's it. So you're being driven, your preconceptions are being filtered by what you see, unless you're going up and shaking everybody's hand and saying, are you gay?
Yeah, well, because you can't just look at it, and that's the thing. It's like people like want to be able to like look at somebody and be like, ah, yes, this is the gay. This is what that means.
Yeah. And I think it upsets people. And you know, we get down to gender and people who are trans, or people even, I'm not, I have a lot of people think I'm trans, short haircut doesn't make me trans. But people who push those boundaries a lot, and it makes them, I constantly say, I understand your discomfort. Because I think a primary socialization feature of our society is to tell little boys and little girls who they are, what toys they should be playing with, and how they should dress, and what jobs you're supposed to do. And that is ingrained. That is before you even have language, you're being taught that. So to shake that foundation makes everybody feel uncomfortable. Everybody. And that's what we're feeling right now. When people are railing against the trans community in this horrific kind of way, they're shaking a fundamental that people think has to be the foundation of everything that is right and everything.
Because they feel like it's a transgression on their masculinity, their femininity, their gender, right? Like it seems like people take it as an attack, whereas it's not an attack. It's an opening up of a worldview of seeing that like little girls can be into Power Rangers and little boys can wear dresses, and that girl can be straight and that boy can be straight, or they could be gay or they could be trans, and none of it matters.
But when you open up those boxes, human beings like categories. It makes us feel comfortable. It makes us feel safe. It makes us feel in control. And when you disrupt the categories and blow up the boxes, everybody doesn't, when you walk into the world and you can't quickly identify, there's a level of discomfort that exists. The funny part is, it's a facade anyway. The expectation of comfort due to the classification of people, you were always tricking your mind into something that wasn't real anyways, right? So when we blow up those boundaries and say there's no more classifications, you can no longer treat people when you shake a hand and you call them Mr. or Mr. and they say mix, you're like, oh, now how am I supposed to handle you? I'll tell you, like a person.
You just
so when I blow up those categories, it makes you feel uncomfortable. So the discomfort can quickly, if you don't handle it right, as we've seen with the Trump presidency or Polyev, it quickly becomes fear. Because discomfort and a feeling like a lack of control, you never had control anyone, but a feeling like you're lacking in control, you can quickly have an individual manipulate that into fear and to aggression so that you can give the pretense of regaining that control.
I know yeah, I think that kind of strikes a chord. It really kind of encapsulates, I think, what a lot of people who don't think about their gender identity want to learn about. Like people want, because people know fundamentally that there's a disconnect between how some people talk about LGBTQ people and the fact that most average people just don't want it to be this big topic. And so I think the realization that all of us have to come to is that people are people, and we all have to treat each other just as regular, normal individuals. I think we had a really good conversation. I really appreciate the chat. If anybody wants to find more of either of our stuff, TikTok, YouTube, we both have podcasts. Is there anything you want to plug?
All over the place. I have a YouTube channel, Unlearn 16 classes in session. So I do vlogs there. I do podcasts there. I'm eventually going to start lessons. I don't know what format I'm going to do.
That's awesome.
I'm on Instagram, and TikTok is Unlearn 16. And if you want to come fight the good fight, I'm on Twitter, Unlearn 16 tweet.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I appreciate the chat.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That was a great way to start my morning, I'll tell you.
Have a good one.